All right. Hello and welcome to today's webinar from Linköping University. And today we'll be talking about our master program in ethnic and migration studies. My name is Emily. I will be your moderator today. And before I introduce today's participants, I'd like to mention that we will be recording the first part of this webinar, which is a discussion about 25-30 minutes, depending on how it goes. And you will be able to watch this recording on our website and how many times you'd like if you need some more information. And for everybody watching live, though, you will have the opportunity afterwards to ask us some questions, or our participants some questions. Important note, though, please ask these questions in the question section on the website, because otherwise it gets a bit confusing with the chat. So please write it in the question part. And also, please feel free to let us know how you're feeling about all of this with some reactions, with some emojis, so we can engage with you guys. Yes, and with that being said, let's get started. Welcome to my guests today. We have two students and a professor from the program present. Welcome. I'd like you to introduce yourselves. I think that's always the best option. So maybe we start with Claudia.
Thanks very much for the introduction and welcome everyone to the webinar. My name is Claudia Tazreiter. I'm Professor of Ethnic and Migration Studies here at Linköping University, and I'm also the Program Director for this Master Program in Ethnic and Migration Studies. So really nice to be here with you, and also I'll hand over to the two EMS students that we have in the virtual room today. I think we're really lucky to have them here for you to ask questions and to hear the impressions. So yeah, thank you.
All right, Camilla.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Claudia. I'm Camilla. I'm a second year student of the master program Ethnic and Migration Studies.
All right. Nice to meet you. And last but of course not least, Petronella.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Petronella, or Nelly, whichever you prefer. I'm a second year student of the program as well. Very happy to be here and answer any questions.
Nice. All right. Thank you, guys. I think we just dig right in, and let's start off with, first of, what exactly is this program? What is the aim of this program? What can potential students expect? I mean, maybe Claudia, you want to give some input?
Sure, Emily. So this master program, it's been in existence now. This is the 7th year, and it's been a very successful program at LIU, and it's also growing in demand and in student numbers. It's a very particular kind of program in terms of focusing on ethnic and migration studies. So we do focus on migration as a phenomena and migration policies and what happens within particular nation states. But this program, I think the departure from this particular program compared to other masters that focus on migration as a phenomena, and also ethnicity and race and intersectional issues that relate to migration, is that this program is very interdisciplinary, and it focuses, comes from a place that we call critical migration studies. And so you see that when you enter the program, and perhaps it's also the current students that can give you more of a perspective, you start to see what we mean by critical migration studies very much from the people that teach you. So we are all active researchers, as I am also, and our approaches to migration as a phenomenon is usually also from a critical approach. And that means that we're not just looking at phenomena, so whether it's refugee movements or whether it's the settlement and integration of various categories of migrants, skilled migrants, labour migrants, family reunion, so different categories into particular nation states. It's not just the superficial phenomena we're interested in, it's also causal links. So looking at history, looking at other processes such as political economy, the nature of capitalism, and these relationships that have a bearing on not just how a migrant fares, but also how the society in general changes, adapts, and how cultures are not fixed, but are malleable through the processes of new people coming, of cultural exchange, and so on. So that's what I would say in an introduction to what's particular about the EMS program. And it means that our students, towards the end, when they're writing a thesis, have great diversity in what they can actually study and what they can focus on. So I think that's a great strength of this program.
Yeah, I gotta say, it already sounds really impressive, really interesting. Maybe Camila and Petronella can give us a small insight into why you guys chose this program, what made you apply and actually start studying here.
Yeah, so for me, I come from a minority region in the Netherlands, the Frisian. So I was already interested in ethnicity and difference, kind of looking at like, so how are categories in society created, and why would I be different from someone else, etc. And so I started studying minorities and multilingualism, and that rolled into migration studies, etc. But I think linking onto what Claudia was telling about our program, I think what our program does really well, and why I decided to choose this program rather than any of the other migration focused masters that are available in Europe. There's not so many, but this one in particular, I think, was very nice in that it combined a lot of different perspectives, including like the ethnicity angle and the kind of more sociological angle, because the themes that we study, migration and ethnicity, are so complex that I think it's so nice that we have like a health and politics angle. We have a course on economics, we have a course on history. So I think that was one of the reasons for me.
If I can add something for what it concerns me, I come from a more institutional background. I studied international relations and European institutions in my bachelor's. So what I felt after my bachelor, it was that I wasn't really in touch with what was important for me, that was society issues and so I felt like on an institutional level, I couldn't really understand and feel what it was the real society issues and what it was needed to work on. So I believe this program satisfied my willingness to get a more detailed and deep insight on everything about society and people in general that I was lacking in a more institutional kind of program. Yes.
All right, thank you very much. That was also very different backgrounds and very interesting aspects of the program we hear again. Now that we've spoken a bit about what in general is being taught, I think it would be nice to look at a bit more how the program is structured. So maybe if Claudia, you want to give us an oversight of the 2 years that it would take.
Sure, Emily, sure. So this the first slide shows you the first year of the program. And I think what I can also say is that the program is, it's quite a busy program. So you are in the 2 years, you do have quite a steady workload, and that's important. Regular reading, but also other interactions, particularly in the second year. But let me just talk to that. So semester 1, you start with a course that looks at historical perspectives on ethnicity and migration. So I think that's very important, that we see migration not as just a contemporary phenomena in the 21st century or even in the post-World War II period, but rather see it as a continuum to the past. And so starting from that historical perspective is quite important for us. And then you can see that you quite quickly, in a course called The World Systems in the Post-Colonial Era, and then the course that follows Class, Labour, Migration and Globalisation, we get straight into the various phenomena, but also the different concepts and the different writers that have given us as migration scholars and practitioners. And of course, many of you will also want to work in maybe public policy or in the media, not necessarily directly in research, gives you the capacities not only to have particular skills, but to have this conceptual armor. In other words, that you can problematize and think about why a particular phenomena, why, let's say, refugee movements comes to be called a crisis in Europe. So not just describe it, but really understand it and use particular concepts to be able to go deeper than the superficial description that a journalist, for example, in an article might make. So, and then towards the end of that first semester, you go through a course on methodology. So you start thinking about what are the different types of projects that migration scholars utilize, how do they frame them, what methodologies do they use. And we also start looking at this concept of intersectionality, so that something like ethnicity, the things that migrants face, also intersect with other points of difference between who we are as human beings, such as gender, sexuality, class position, that those things all relate to each other. And you can then see in semester 2, those 2 courses continue over the winter into the spring. And then you start, again, a very interesting course that takes a very different kind of perspective called Race, Ethnicity, Migration in Culture and Arts. And there you have an opportunity to begin looking at phenomena such as migration, but also ethnicity, race and racialization through the lens of art and artistic production. So again, it's a very different kind of frame, not just traditional social science research, and sociology is the foundation of what we do, but here you're looking at it through the prism of visual production. And here the students are taken, there's a field trip we do towards the end of that course to Stockholm, where we're visiting various art institutions, and some of those are multicultural art institutions, and you're meeting with some of the art producers, the curators, and also the researchers. So it's a whole day trip that's usually very productive. And then you do a course that focuses more on the European Union and asylum policy. So specialized, but again, it gives you a different a kind of specialization. And then you do a course called Critical Cases. And again, the content there, perhaps Nelly and Camilla can tell you more about that later, but the content in that particular course is shaped by the students. And towards the end of that course, you produce a journal. So you all start to write shorter pieces, and it's produced into a printed publication. And there's, you know, that's a nice thing to have to produce, but also the skill of working together and writing together as a student group. Emily, can I have the next slide then? We'll have a look at year 2. So then you see your second year, and this is where you have a lot more choice in your second year to really start to direct your own trajectory and starting to steer yourself into what work you want to do. You have 2 core courses, Migration, Health and Biopolitics, and then Inclusion, Citizenship and Exclusion. So again, you're focusing on migration, but from very particular perspectives. So health is an important field to look at in relation to migration, as is citizenship and belonging. And the rest of that course is made up with electives. But the thing to also remember is that LIU has agreements with many other universities around the world and across Europe. And a number of students choose to do a study abroad semester in semester 3. And we also have an Erasmus exchange possibility where students can also do a double degree. So you are then away for your entire second year at another institution, which a lot of students find appealing. And then the high point, really, I think, for me at least, the high point is the production of the thesis. So towards the end of your 2 years, you then are the author of your own thesis, focused on some aspect of migration studies. But I must say, students in the EMS program produce the most wonderful and diverse theses at the end of the 2 years. And that's, as a teacher and as a professor, that's always very rewarding to see that end point. So that's the structure. Camilla and Nelly, would you like to comment on any of that and your experiences?
Yeah, I'd really like to know what your favorite courses were as well.
Yeah, so I don't know if I have a favorite course per se, because I think a lot of courses are quite different in their content, etc. I do really think I like the culture and arts course, because it kind of steps out of a kind of an academic view of a very much a public discourse view, and kind of a lot more into ways of expression and how identities are mediated through this. So I really like that, and also the way this course was assessed was through reflections on through people. The students had to write a long report on how they reflected onto the course material, and I really liked the way we could deal with that. But then again, also the health course, the health and biopolitics course, I think was really interesting, particularly because it dealt with a lot of very relevant issues in migration policies these days. So I think it's the mix that makes it nice, personally.
Yes, I absolutely agree with what Nelly said right now. It's the mix that is special, in my opinion, too. It gives this program as a whole gives a really variegated, really variegated perspectives on every aspect that can be related to migration in general. But also these courses help to really widen your your perspective on many fields that sometimes it's hard to imagine. I honestly thought when I started to have an open mind, now looking back, I'm like, okay, maybe I was a little bit limited, and it's really nice because, as I said, every course it's built in a way that it doesn't leave behind anything, but every perspective it's really well investigated, and it's really it's perfect to combine a general knowledge on the topic. And my favorite, I think it was intersectionality. The intersectionality course was, it's in my heart, honestly.
Very nice. Okay, so you two mentioned a lot about the contents of the courses. What would you say would a usual week or typical week for you look like, with like the workload that you have, what kind of work it is? What would you say is a usual one for you guys? I think maybe Camilla, you want to start?
Yes. What is different from my background in my bachelor degree? I did my bachelor degree in Italy, and the structure there was like a lot of courses together in the first semester, and then a lot of courses together in the second semester, and then 1 month for semester for exams. What I find also nice of this program is that we take one course at a time. There was only once last year when we had 2 courses in the same month, but usually we have 1 course at a time, and it's really nice to focus on the subject and to do some research on the subject. So that month is dedicated to a singular subject. And then at the end of the month, we have to submit a paper on a topic related to the course that we are doing. This week is actually a paper week for us, for me and Nelly, for inclusion, exclusion, and citizenship course. And yeah, so since we have one course at a time, the schedule every week is not very tight. So we have from 2 to 3 or 4 seminars per week. It really depends from course to course. And to be honest, we have a lot of time where we are not in class, but it's very much needed for all the readings we need to do in order to strengthen our knowledge and to be prepared to write the final paper.
Yeah, exactly. What Camilla said, lots of reading and writing. It's the course of the program is really kind of focused on you studying individually a lot. And obviously we work together with our classmates and we discuss things as well. But in the end, I think the course really turns into something that you make of it. As a student, you interact with the material, and then all the seminars and the lectures will become a lot more interesting. And I think that is definitely a strength. Also, what Camilla said, I was also not used to the one course at a time formats before I came here. It definitely has its pros, I think, with being able to focus on one thing at a time, especially because you really want to get deeply into these matters. But I think it depends a little bit on how you work as well, because this does mean that you have less time kind of to think of what you want to do your paper on, for instance. So it can take some getting used to throughout the process, I think, for me. But you get used to that a lot, and then you can focus a lot more on your reading and your writing and your seminars. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for this. Like, it sounds amazing, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people watching right now are also thinking, I really want to apply. So I think that's what we should talk about next. So first up, what are the requirements to get in? Because we've heard that Nelly and Camilla, you have different backgrounds, but what are some of the requirements to get into the program, and what kind of student would benefit the most from this program? Maybe Claudia, you want to go first?
Sure. Look, it's a very hard question to answer specifically. I think our student body in the EMS program is very diverse, both in terms of geographic and ethnic backgrounds, as well as the previous specialisation. So what discipline, what previous programs, undergraduate programs have students come from. And I think that's quite deliberate, is that we have chosen over time to try and make we run a program called the Global Classroom, where we work in a very sort of deliberate, conscious way to make the classroom as diverse as possible, meaning that we seek to recruit students from all parts of the world and do our best to support them in that, as well as, of course, students from throughout Europe, and local Swedish students. So I think we do have a very nice mix in the classroom, and I think that is a great advantage to everyone, actually, to hear not just from the professors, but also that the students, in discussion, come from so many different backgrounds, and therefore, approaches to migration, approaches to all these different topics, of course, are also diverse. And I think that's a big positive for everyone in the classroom. And I think we as teachers also benefit from that diversity. The It is competitive to get into the program. So the program has more and more applications each year. And so, there's a range of things that's taken into account. Of course, your previous education or attainment and so on does matter. But there's a range of factors that we take into account in making offers to students.
Yeah, sounds like a very fun environment to study in, to be honest. Maybe one question again for the two students. So you guys chose, you're not from Sweden, you guys chose to come here and do this program. So what has student life been like? And what is maybe your favorite part about studying at Linköping University?
Okay, maybe I can go first on this one. I honestly never been to Sweden before coming last September 2021 for starting this program. So I didn't really know what to expect, honestly. And but one thing that surprised me a lot was the student life, especially the one that there is at Linköping University. I wasn't expecting that. It kind of reminded me in a way the US. I don't know why, but in a way there are some traditions and that kind of but in a complete Swedish way that is interesting. Just an example. Every student has these overalls differentiated by color per program, and so you can put your name on and the patches from the parties you've been in, your program patch, any patch you can find, honestly. And I have mine here, and I have my initiation on Saturday. And I think it's a really nice aspect of the student life here, because the overall tradition is not really spread anymore in Sweden, but Linköping University has it still, and I think it's a very nice aspect, and it's fun for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think definitely what Kami says is so true. Sweden has great traditions. I think one thing that a lot of you might be wondering or thinking about is that this program is located on campus Norrköping, not on campus Linköping. So a lot of student events are going on indeed on campus Linköping. Linköping is the bigger city with the more students. For instance, the International Students Organization Association is also located there. But Norrköping has quite an active student life as well. You do have these traditions in Norrköping as well. And for instance, you can be part of ESN network, ISA network, the International Students Association, from Norrköping as well. And there's a lot of activities going on here as well. And apart from that, Norrköping itself also is quite a lively city. And as a city, I think it's quite beautiful. It has quite some events going on, like lights festivals, for instance, music festivals. So I think that is also a really nice addition to your life next to the university.
I would like to finish off this discussion part with a question, like a general question of like, what useful tips do you have, also from you, Claudia? Like, what would be something you recommend for potential applicants to do or to remember while applying? The floor is yours, you guys.
Well, look, if I can just quickly say, and perhaps it's really interesting for the people on the Zoom to hear, particularly from Camilla and Nelly, but perhaps I can just say, I think you're doing the right thing by joining this, for example, and trying to inform yourself as much as possible about what the program offers. and what's distinct about the program, just to make sure that it fits with what you want. And, you know, for example, I can see there's a few questions there in the chat about what sort of jobs people have afterwards. And, you know, that's very diverse. People that graduate from the EMS program, some of them do become researchers, so go on to do a PhD and have a research career, but many are working in other sectors. So, you know, we keep in touch with our alumni and know where our alumni usually are. They also keep in touch with us very much. And people are working in various sectors. So some people are working in the government sector, either in Sweden, or some people return to their home country and work in government sectors there. Many work in different non-governmental agencies and human rights organizations. So I know that there are some recent graduates and alumni that are working, for instance, in the Mediterranean on some of the independent vessels that are rescuing migrants. So, and other people are working in media and sort of advice roles to various stakeholders. So it's very diverse. It's certainly not just in research careers, but certainly some people choose a research career. So I would just say inform yourself as much as possible. There is information on the EMS site as well, pointing to alumni and what people are doing. So I think that's, you know, you're doing the right thing by being here and listening and also asking questions to make sure that the program is a good match for you. Camilla and Nelly, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, thinking really about the application process itself, I would say don't get overwhelmed with all the bureaucratic steps you have to go through. Just take it one by one, applying, but also when you're thinking about moving to Sweden, you know, getting the personal number, coming here, especially if you come from outside of the EU and you have to get a visa, etc. Take things step by step. Also, if you're considering coming to Sweden, living here, look at the sites for the housing and register so you can start queuing, and it will be easy to get housing that way. Yeah, and indeed, inform yourself, think about what you want to be doing, and reflect on what you have to offer and can learn from this experience.
Yes, what I can just briefly add, I think Claudia and Nelly already said a lot about this, but don't be scared. And while doing your application, I wasn't a very brilliant student in my bachelor degree because I didn't like that so much. And but anyway, I don't know, EMS saw something in my application, and here I am 1.5 years later. So yeah.
All right, great. Thank you very much for all of this information and all the input and the tips. This is where we will now stop the recording. Thank you guys again for joining and for answering all of my questions. And for everybody watching the recording, thank you. And please remember to follow us on social media. So we have our Instagram account, Linköping.University, and on Facebook as well. And also check out our student blogs. You can find some more information on student life. And we also have a podcast available on streaming platforms called Fika with Us. And you can find some more information there as well.